Hello, and welcome to this conversation on pivoting during pandemic. With us to discuss their experiences adapting to new modes of living and working are Brittany Taylor, Chelsea Whittington, and Tavetta Patterson. Many of you may know them as CURE instructors, entrepreneurs, and engaged members of the local community. I thank each of them for taking the time to participate in this conversation, and will now turn it over to Chelsea to begin our discussion.
Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for having me to be a part of a great discussion. And welcome to my colleagues, Tavetta and Brittany, who are IUN and doing a great service to our community and to our students who keep coming back for more content. I want to start this conversation by posing the question, since the pandemic came about, what are some of the things that you have changed? Did you change your class offerings, Brittany and Tavetta? Did you change your biz services? What about the pandemic caused you to pivot, and how did you do it?
Well, I would say everything changed, and so everything had to be adapted. First and foremost, I adapted the time of instruction from 2 to 4 hours a week to 1 hour per week, which meant you had to compact content and keep it relevant so that people would keep coming back. The second thing I had to adapt to was the class title. So one class was Write Through Grief. It was changed to Talk Through Grief. And I went from providing grief recovery in person to providing grief recovery on the telephone. The third way that I adapted was the focus of the class. So previously we focused on strictly the passing of a loved one. So in a sense, we talked about grief in a past tense. Now, once the pandemic happened, it was a lot of in-person, real-time grief that we had to address. People express grief over isolation due to the stay-at-home orders, missing fellowship in person with people. People express grief about that. Some people during the last session expressed grief over racism because the first day we were scheduled to start was the day the funeral of George Floyd. It was broadcast on television. So in real time, people were expressing grief. And so we had to adapt in every way imaginable, but we got through it together. The second class was the virtual calls class. Initially, I had this grand idea. We're going to talk about 4 different ways to do virtual calls. We get on the class and everyone has Zoom questions. So I adapted from 4 different platforms to focusing solely on Zoom. But it was a great joy because the front end of the conversation, people were talking about isolation and missing people. And so the Zoom class was a great service because it helped people to reconnect and communicate with their friends and family. And then it helped some people transition to working from home. So everywhere imaginable, there was adapting. And so I would like to know, what challenges did you experience transitioning from in-person to online classes?
I'm Brittany Taylor. Hi, guys. For me, some of the challenges there was a lot of challenges because my company and what I do with IUN is really hands-on. When I teach classes, I teach hands-on. You pull out your phone and we're going to do this together, and we're going to keep doing it until you get it. And so Zoom is a whole barrier right there. So it actually forced me to try to do lecture style teaching, which is kind of complicated for what I do as far as trying to get them to understand the smartphone, because I can't gauge to tell, like, okay, are you getting this? Are you just saying okay and you're totally lost? So it is definitely a transition for me. Even with as soon as the pandemic started, I attempted with my own business saying, okay, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to try virtual, and I want you guys to sign in Zoom. It took about 30 minutes. Like, my sessions are typically an hour. So it took about 30 minutes just to troubleshoot, to try to explain to them, okay, this is what you need to put in. This is the meeting ID. This is the passcode you need to put in so that you can get on. Then once they're on, okay, you have to hit that button that says flip the camera. You have to flip the camera. Where's the camera at? So then about 30 minutes of troubleshooting. And then finally, when they're on the call, the way that I teach is I display my screen a lot. I display the phone screen or the computer screen. And so That was good. But then what I found out was if I'm displaying the screen, they can't see my face because their box on the side is minimized. So it's just been a doozy in itself. One of the other things is, like yesterday, I had a class and I sat there for about 5 minutes trying to explain to the student, I need you to hold your phone to the camera because she was on her laptop and I needed her to hold her phone towards the camera so I could see what it looked like on her phone. And she just didn't get what I was saying. And so I was just like, okay. So I'm excited for when this pandemic ends. I'm very excited for when we're able to move on to back to in-person, because I'm a lover and I love to hug my students and I love to, see the smile on their face, and virtually I just can't, I just don't get that kind of connection that I would with in-person classes.
I definitely understand both of you and your feedback because I witnessed lot of the same. I teach the introduction to computers and the introduction to email and internet classes, and doing it from a YouTube standpoint, doing the pre-record and then kind of crossing my fingers and hoping that when they watch it, I am speaking clearly enough, slowly enough. I'm panning my camera back and forth to my computer screen, just trying to make it interactive. But I will say it has gotten progressively better. I've done about four or five videos now that some scheduled to be uploaded and live actually tomorrow, thanks to Amanda and her patience, because I would do one, not really like it, do it again, or I would get interrupted, sidetracked. So that's all on one side before you even get to the other side of how my students will be able to log on, especially when you're thinking about a class that's introduction to them. You worry about whether they can even get on to watch the video. So it is my hope that they have a grandchild, a child, a colleague, a friend that's kind of on the wing, in the wing, they're able to access their videos, but I'm sure they'll reach out to Indiana University if they're having any difficulties. Now, from a business standpoint, I know we'll move further down in the agenda and I'll talk more about that, but while it presented a whole different set of challenges, it also presented a whole lot of opportunities, because I'm in the line of work where people need to communicate. They need to use social media now that we're not able to meet in person as much. And so they have depended heavily on my services, where I am now turning business away or pausing it to say, I have to get to you in a few weeks. And I count that as a blessing.
What other suggestions for pivoting during the pandemic that each of you have for our viewers?
Well, Brittany here. So one of the suggestions I suggest is, if technology is not going anywhere, we're not sure when this pandemic is going to end. So it's kind of like you have to get on board. So there's so many different resources out there, like Chelsea was just saying. You can contact her, reach out to her for email, social media, definitely social media. She's like social media guru. I look at her and I'm, really impressed by a lot of things that she's doing on the social media aspect and PR aspect. And then, like, for me, I'm still doing house calls with the social distancing and the face mask required. So I will come out to your home, or you can come out to where I am, and we'll do one-on-one sessions, individualized sessions for you. But the best thing I can say is, during this pandemic, is adapt. That's the best thing I have to say, is you have to just adapt. I was speaking with, I think it was a class a few weeks ago, and I was explaining to them, like, they're putting signs now on restaurants saying, hey, you can only pay with credit, debit, or contactless payment. And so they're like, they're not taking cash anymore because they're saying it's a coin shortage. So even with that, people are like, well, what's contactless payment? So that's something that you're really going to need to know during this pandemic and during this time, is how do I use contactless payment? So just everything is transitioning, everything is changing just with society. So I just say, jump on board and don't be fearful. Don't be fearful, because there's people there that can help you, and there's people there that want you to get on board.
Absolutely. All of those were really, really great, Brittany. I would add to what you shared is embracing a new normal, because life and business as we once knew it does not exist anymore. And I don't think we're ever going back to a prior normal. So I would say collaborate as we have today to build a strong support team. I like to call it a virtual support team. If you have to, build a community online that can support you as everything is changing so that you can embrace your own new normal. And then what I commend IU Northwest for is pulling together resources and pooling resources to share how-to videos. We'll be sharing more videos coming up very soon about how to continue to pivot during the pandemic, how to show up on camera, how to prepare for online Zoom interviews if you're in the career pivoting process. And then I would also add in my closing is to see this time as a time for clarity, to get clear about the life, the business, and the career that you want to build. And until doors open, prepare for the doors to open.
To add on, what my advice would be is be open to reinventing yourselves. I found that with my business, I already had a lot of services in play, but it was how I delivered those services is that what changed since there's social distancing in place, and just adding on additional services. And some people who have totally pivoted into different career paths as a result of the pandemic. They have made inventions, things that make things that are easier for people during the pandemic, whether it's something as simple as making masks. People are making a lot of money creating masks. So I would encourage people to take a look at what you're currently doing, align it with the pandemic and the needs of the communities and audiences that you serve, and see what you can come up with that's new, innovative, but still safe. There's money to be made, and there are connections, like you said, Tavetta, to be made, to get clarity, know who matters, and also take this time to do old-fashioned, pick up the phone and call quality type communication as well. Nothing beats that.
Well, thank you all for sharing your experiences and your suggestions. You are all fantastic resources, and we appreciate you greatly. For our viewers, the contact information for today's guests will be posted in the comments to this and or in the post itself, should you like to get in touch with them directly. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful day.